Welcome to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. Let's talk about Sharon Carter. Specifically, what's she up to? Is Agent 13 still on the side of the Angels? Or has she had enough and she's finally asking,
what's in it for me?
So I'm going to go over three possibilities. She's evil now, she's still good, or maybe she's always been evil. And also, who is her mysterious accomplice that picks her up? I've got answers, so let's break this down. First, a little background on Sharon Carter. Remember, she was the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent assigned by Fury to monitor Steve Rogers from next door. Natasha actually encourages Steve to ask her out.
What about the nurse that lives across the hall from you? She seems kind of nice.
Which makes you wonder, did she know that Sharon was an agent and she wanted her to get closer to Steve? She could have been part of Fury's assignment all along.
What?
So after S.H.I.E.L.D. falls, Sharon got a job with the FBI. Steve finds out that she's actually the niece of his long-lost love, Peggy Carter. Although it's never said outright, Sharon's father or grandfather is probably Peggy's brother, since they share the same last name. In Civil War, Sharon convinces Steve not to sign the Sokovia Accords.
Look them in the eye and say no. You move.
Helps Steve track down Bucky, and recovers his gear. Remember that information for later. So first question, is she evil now? Now, a lot of people were wondering if maybe Sharon could actually be the power broker, the mysterious crime lord who controls Madripoor and commissioned Dr. Nagel to finish his super soldier project. I seriously doubt that Sharon has created this global network of criminal conspiracies and spies from scratch in the years after the blip. But remember that graffiti in episode 3, The Power Broker is Watching You? Now this is meant to echo the dystopian novel 1984, and the posters reading Big Brother is Watching You. Now it turns out in the novel, spoiler alert, that Big Brother was not real. He was a paternal figure created by the state to frighten and control the public. So maybe there actually is no power broker. This could be a front, or there could have been many power brokers over the years, like the Dread Pirate Roberts.
I inherited the ship from the previous Dread Pirate Roberts, just as you will inherit it from me.
I could see Sharon Carter taking over the mantle of power broker from someone else. There's also the possibility that Sharon works for the power broker. After all, she was able to find Dr. Nagel very easily. She ducks out of the bar as soon as Zemo, Sam, and Bucky show up looking for Selby. Maybe she went off to warn her bosses. Then Selby is shot to prevent her from talking. But then, why would she lead Zemo, Bucky, and Sam to the doctor, the guy who could make more serum, the guy with all the answers? The power broker had to know that Zemo wanted to kill the guy, right? Unless this wasn't the real Nagel. If the men fighting Sharon work for the power broker, this would explain why they launched a rocket at the container. Otherwise, they'd be risking Nagel's death. Now, as for why the power broker would send his men to kill someone who's working for him, at this point, you could say that Sharon was expendable. She'd already led Sam, Bucky, and Zemo into a trap, a container they were going to blow up with a rocket. The power broker probably figured that Sharon can hold her own against these goons, but if he lost her, not that big of a deal to him. So then, when Sharon meets her bodyguard, she says,
We've got a big problem. Actually, a couple of them. I'll tell you in the car. Let's go.
So this would be a reference to Bucky and Sam. Maybe. But then why 2 problems instead of 3, including Zemo? I've got a reason for that I'll go into in a minute. There's also the death of Selby. Selby wasn't killed to prevent her from talking. She was ordering her men to kill the heroes.
Kill them.
Then she's shot, allowing the 3 amigos to escape. But immediately afterwards, the Madripoor underworld gets a text blast that Selby's dead, and puts a bounty on the heroes' heads. So Selby was actually killed to frame Sam, Bucky, and Zemo, to get the Madripoorian underworld on their tail. These events made it much easier for Sharon to earn their trust by claiming to reluctantly help them. It's very possible that she killed Selby to set this into motion, because no matter who she's working for, it helps her earn the trust of the good guys and Zemo. Also, she turns up like 1 second after Selby's dead and says,
And Selby's dead?
Probably not a coincidence. Sir Falcon 38 on Twitter suggested another strong reason for her working for the power broker. Maybe he's kidnapped her dad.
My own father doesn't know where I am.
Listen,
If this is the case, then we would meet another member of the Carter family. And it would be fun if he was an old, stuffy Englishman. This connection to Peggy would also further this series' ties to Steve's past. Bucky and Sam are tasked with carrying on Steve's legacy, although now that legacy is tainted by John Walker. In the same way, Sharon has to carry on the legacy of Aunt Peggy, even though she's tainted the family name with her criminal actions in Madripoor. But let's discuss a more likely possibility, that Sharon is an undercover good guy. After all, we first met her under an assumed identity. This might be her new identity, a jaded ex-S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who's only in it for herself.
Look, you know the whole hero thing is a joke, right?
Madripoor has a very old, layered criminal underworld. The best way for an agency to infiltrate it would be to hide in plain sight. So for years, Sharon has been deep undercover, which we've seen her do before, posing as a jaded ex-SHIELD agent. Now, I don't think she's working for Fury. Remember, he's off in space somewhere preparing for the Secret Invasion show. It's more likely she'd be working for someone like Thunderbolt Ross. Let me explain. Nagel tells the boys,
Program had been abandoned, so I came here. The power broker was more than happy to fund the recreation of my work.
So I'm betting that Ross was supervising this program before the blip. After all, he used aspects of Erskine's experiment to create the abomination. Notice this canister says Vita Rays.
The subject will be saturated with vital rays.
And Ross wants government control of all superheroes. So now Sharon's job is to infiltrate the Power Brokers organization and recover Nagel. She didn't plan on Zemo killing him. So when she says,
We've got a big problem. Actually, a couple of them. I'll tell you in the car. Let's go.
she's referring to the death of Nagel and Zemo escaping, and she can't recapture Zemo because that would blow her cover. Very possible theory, especially since the show seems to want us to think that she's a villain at this point, but it's not very fun. So let me talk about my favorite theory and the one that I really hope is true. Sharon isn't just evil, she's always been evil, kind of. There's precedence for this in the comics when she was mind-controlled by the Red Skull into killing Steve Rogers. She was actually hypnotized by the villain Dr. Faustus, who has been in the MCU. He appeared in Agent Carter as a captured villain who cozies up to Arnim Zola.
We must focus.
Then, in the present day, Hydra used a Faustus machine to mind control people. So, what if, in the MCU, Sharon Carter has always been mind controlled by Hydra, but that mind control has been taken over by Baron Zemo? Let me explain. There's a terrific YouTube channel called Nando vs. Movies. He does great theory breakdowns and movie rewrites. You should really check him out. And a few years ago, he posted a theory that I love. Sharon Carter was helping Zemo in Civil War.
What?
Nando theorizes that Sharon would have been a deep Hydra plant, and Zemo was able to mind control her using code word. After all, it would pay to have a Hydra agent living right next door to Steve Rogers, especially one who's related to his long-lost love and would instantly earn his trust. I'm actually going to add on to Nando's theory and say that she could have been hypnotized by the Faustus machine when she was still a child, visiting her Aunt Peggy at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Now, Nando does question why she doesn't side with Hydra and Winter Soldier, but it's a simple solution. She was never activated. And remember, Bucky needed the help of Wakanda to undo his Hydra brainwashing. Now that the Wakandans have entered the show, they could eventually undo Sharon's brainwashing. But again, the most compelling evidence that Sharon is working for Zemo is in the movie Civil War. So I'm going to elaborate on the theories posted by Nando, and I've linked his video down in the description. Great channel, lots of fun, check it out. So lots of the events in Civil War had to break just right for Zemo's plan to work. The Sokovia Accords, Steve and Tony on opposing sides, Cap finding Bucky, the list goes on. Sharon Carter was present for all of these events, nudging Steve in a direction that suited Zemo's plan. When Steve is pondering if he should sign, she quotes her Aunt Peggy, which is actually a speech from the comics, which is a quote by Mark Twain.
Look them in the eye and say no. You move.
So this is convincing Steve to not sign the Accords, placing him in opposition to Tony Stark. Later, she provides Steve with the intel of where he can find Bucky. This allows him to capture Bucky and return him to the prison where Zemo can activate him. She could have even helped Zemo infiltrate the system to begin with, giving him the name of the doctor who was assigned to Barnes. After Bucky escapes, Sharon is right there telling Steve where to find him.
Sub-level 5 East Wing.
Again, meaning that Steve is going to be on the run with his fugitive friend, further setting the stage for the Civil War. Then she recovers Steve and Sam's gear, allowing them to fight Tony's team. It's a pretty convincing case, so now let's look at how it applies to this show. Sharon is working with Zemo, against her will or willingly. She's able to infiltrate the Madripoorian underworld thanks to his connections. He funds her art business to give her a financial stake and a reason to be in contact with the underworld. Zemo told her that they were going to this bar to look for Selby, so it's not a coincidence that they just happen to run into Sharon Carter. Sharon kills Selby just so there will be a price on the heads of Bucky and Sam. This makes it easier for her to earn their trust. Zemo wants to get close enough to Nagel to kill him. After all, he hates superheroes.
Superheroes cannot be allowed to exist.
Sharon clears out the Power Broker's men, giving Zemo enough time to interrogate Nagel and then kill him. Conveniently, the assassins destroy his lab, erasing all of Nagel's work, probably because they were also working for Zemo, or at least this guy with the rocket launcher. Now, the beautiful part of the Zemo theory is that Sharon wouldn't know that she was being mind-controlled, so she could also be working for the good guys, or be the jaded cynic working for the Power Broker. So when she says,
We've got a big problem. Actually, a couple of them. I'll tell you in the car. Let's go.
she could be talking to a fellow agent or her personal bodyguard like it says in the credits. Now, I don't think this bodyguard is going to play a larger role. According to the credits, this woman is played by Megan Gillenwater, who works as a set production assistant on the show. She's not a professional actor. This implies that she'll have a one-and-done role in the show. So Sharon says this line really just so the audience can hear her say it, not because the bodyguard is so important that we'll see her again later, or that she's an integral part of Sharon's criminal organization. If Sharon were the power broker, this would have been a chance to introduce some close bodyguard that we were going to see fight it out with Bucky later on. So this tells me that Sharon is probably not head of a vast criminal underworld. But what do you think? Do you like the Sharon works for Zemo theory? Do you have your own theories? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.